So I was sitting here at my desk thinking about how I should be building out my next week of programming since currently I'm writing my own programming, and also thinking about I should be producing some content because I haven't gotten a piece out of that yet this week. So I was like, I think this could be a good mix. So let's bring back some programming TV. It's been a little bit. We'll see, we'll see if we can entertain some people playing around in Google Sheets today. Ba, 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 ba. So currently I've been sort of in off-season training mode where I'm really driving up my squat numbers, my aerobic system as a whole, and just doing some more like off-season fun type training. And I just signed up for MetCon Rush, which is a competition in Maryland, which has an elite division that I got invited to. So I'm going to be doing that now at the end of August, which luckily I've got about 8 weeks. It'll be actually, the week I'm going to be programming is 8 weeks out from the competition. So it's the third week that I've actually figured out that I'm probably going to be doing this competition. So I just got done with the second week's worth of programming for moving towards this competition. So I would not call this full on competition prep yet. However, I'm definitely starting to prepare for the demands of the competition. I did some research on the competition, figured out what their programming style is, what equipment they typically have, what the venue typically looks like, and starting to build out stuff that is sort of things that I think can be high leverage handles for me to pull on. I can actually improve in the next 8 weeks because there's certain things that I probably just realistically can only improve so much. Like for example, like they've had bike ergs in previous years, but I've spent a ton of time on bikes in my life. So the ceiling for improvement there is probably only so much. However, I am going to switch a lot of my zone work over to the C2 bike just to get a lot of exposure on that erg, and also put environments where I can get kind of novel exposures to those types of workouts so that I can better pace based on whether it's for calories versus for meters, because that's something that could also be a factor based on previous workouts that they've done. So things like that is what I'm looking at. Okay, so let's actually get into it. First of all, I'm on the week of June 19th right now. The first thing I always do is I'll pull down to the next week and copy and paste. I do this for my individual design clients as well, and then I'll go in and modify everything that needs to be modified, including the dates. And bam, the dates are updated. So the other thing that I'll do is if I'm starting a template, like a new template from scratch, I will not copy and paste. I'll probably build out everything from scratch, typing everything out from a blank cell, right? So that's much more time consuming, but that only happens maybe every 4 to 8 weeks, depending on how long of a cycle we're actually running for that athlete. So I'm going to be running 2 4-week cycles here just to kind of, that way I'm not just running one long one right up to competition prep, and it also allows me to deload in between. So you can see this is sort of like my schedule moving forward, where we're 7 weeks out in July and then building up towards the competition itself, which is August 26th and 27th. I'm actually on vacation the week before, so that should be interesting. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is copy and paste in from, I have the name game workouts, those sessions. It's an entire session, not just a single like MetCon now, but at the entire session that's built out. And that's my Saturday. And then Sunday is typically a rest day. Sometimes if I feel up for it and, I have a little bit of extra time, I'll just do something fun like, bench press and, bicep curls or something that I enjoy. Go for a run or a hike or, walk with a kid or something. So, and then basically I know, and if I had an athlete actually doing this, and obviously I know for myself, but like I'll go back and look at their feedback and have that on one screen, have my, the back end of this, essentially the master on the other end, and be able to go through and build out their progression as I see fit. So first thing is I'm going to put in this handstand skill work, which is something that I've actually have for various ID clients, individual design clients that I have, and I'm putting it through myself as well. It's stuff that is just varied looks at different skill works. And now we're actually introducing a little bit of cyclical fatigue along with that, just to get a little bit of central fatigue. And that's something that, while I think it's relatively unlikely that we're going to see pirouettes or something like that at this competition, I want to continue to build towards other things as well as, who knows? It's totally possible that something just, comes up and catches us all off guard, and I want to be prepared for it. And if I'm just better on my hands as a whole, that's only going to help. So that's why I do that kind of thing. The AM for that day is front squat strength drive, as you'll see up there if I zoom in a bit. And so what I'm going to do for this, I actually want to use the hamstring curls this week as a warm-up because I felt like a little bit slow in that first session. So we're going to switch that to the morning. We're going to add another set just because, and I'll do some additional prep work in between each of those sets. And then realistically, I think I will be fine just to, if I pull this weight back a little bit, I want the volume to stay high because I really want to drive this strength on the other day of the week, on that Wednesday front squat drive, which is like the secondary, maybe not secondary, but it's the second touch of it. It's actually more of a primary day. And then the goblet Bulgarian split squat, which I abbreviate a lot of stuff in my own program, so I apologize. But I'm going to move that to 80, and we'll keep all of the factors the same, right? Sometimes it's just about giving yourself more exposures of something and allowing yourself to adapt to it properly. So as I said, like this will only be the second week that I'm in this cycle because I did some of these testers, as you'll see here. Last week I did a KPI test, 5 rounds per time, 800-meter biker, 2x30-foot handstand walk, unbroken lengths. That was gnarly. Got 9:58, which actually I was quite happy with. My handstand walks are fast and unbroken the whole time. And I was holding like a 140 to 143 most of the time on the bike erg, and then a little bit lower towards the end. So it was pretty aggressive and nasty. So I want to get some, you'll see up here in the template, legless rope climb pieces. So it's doing a touch of legless rope climb, but it's not doing just straight volume of legless rope climb. That allows me to get some volume, but not let it get so out of hand, where that, like, I'm dealing with like cranky elbows or bicep irritation or any sort of thing like that. And then I'm going to then do some additional rowing. And again, I would consider these to be like secondary pieces for building like legless rope climb or just like upper body pulling strength as a whole. And that's what I mean by pieces, like hitting the different elements required for that particular skill. So kettlebell bent over row. We don't have super heavy dumbbells here at the gym. They only go up to 80 for now. We'll probably get some more in the future, but that's why I'm going to be using a kettlebell instead that goes up to 106, so I'll push the strength there. And then barbell bicep curls, I wasn't really sure what weight I should be using, so I just kind of left that open-ended with a 3-second lower just to kind of control the tempo. And then I'm going to take this tester piece and instead we're going to make this interval based. And again, I wanted to be bike erg power with some sort of inversion, or particularly handstand walking. And what we've seen in the past, there is either 30 or 50 foot handstand walk lengths. So in this case, we're going to leave it the 2x30 feet. So we're going to do bike erg, but bring down the total meters at the beginning and the end, just so that I can hit that with more intensity than I would be able to with if it was like straight rounds per time, right? So basically walking 150 meters in between, that's going to take me just south of 2 minutes to be able to do that. So that's going to be about 2 minutes of rest. So I'm not sure exactly how long that's going to take me. Probably, I don't know, probably less than 2 minutes. So it's going to be probably very, very close to like 1-to-1 work rest, which is, I like doing a lot of intervals and like that sort of thing. And then I also want to get some grip density. So like really some upper body gymnastic stuff. I know I already touched on this earlier, but you'll see it's like inversion, erg based work first, and then it goes into sort of like upper body pulling and like accessory bits, and then it goes back to that erg and handstand walk, and then back to upper body pulling bits. So I actually really like doing that sometimes. Like sometimes I like going like one piece immediately into the next piece that's like working the same body group. So like squat into Bulgarian split squat in the AM session, for example. It's obviously going to tax out the quads even more. However, if you kind of flip-flop elements in a workout like this, it allows people to get a little bit of a break and then come back to that system later on once it's had a little bit of opportunity to recover at least a bit. So this is what I came up with, a 5-minute EMOM of 5-bar muscle-ups, which is going to be pretty easy. And then at the 5-minute mark, so basically at the very end of that interval, you might get like 40 seconds of rest, or actually probably like 50 seconds of rest. And then at that 5-minute mark, you're doing 80 toes to bar for time. So it's like some grip fatigue, some upper body pulling, but like quality based work right into like high density toes to bar work, which I hope to do in like a few sets. We'll see how that goes. The next day, I actually have this progression built out already. So I'm just going to pull it over here and slap it in here. I actually wrote this like during my rest of my last week's intervals. So you can see last week, it was a 30 calorie row, resting 90 seconds in between each, 60-minute clock series, doing it for 60 minutes total, ramping the pace every 10 calories. So from 0 to 10 calories, it was 1,000. From 10 to 20, it was 1,200. And then from 20 to 30, it was 1,400. That was for the first 3 sets. And then from there, I ramped up each of those respectively until I got up to an RPE 8, or an 8 out of 10 exertion level. So by the end, I think it was probably somewhere around like 1,150 to maybe 12 to 1,300, and then like 1,400 to 1,500 by the last one. That was definitely RPE 8, not any higher. And then this week it's going to be a similar type thing, but now it's 50 cals. And really, I just want to continue to extend out the chunks of work that I'm doing. So doing longer duration work, as simple as extending out the number of cals you're doing, but then also extending out the rest to make sure that it's sort of mirrored in the work rest ratio to be able to continue to put out some decent wattage on the ergs. So same thing, you'll see that it's ramping throughout. And then the PM, it's a snatch strength drive. Definitely need to continue working on my strength. And likely in a competition like this, we're not going to see stuff out of a rack or like benches or things unless they buy new equipment, which is totally possible, but it's just relatively unlikely compared to the odds of seeing like heavy barbell cycling or a max lift that's off the floor. So continuing to work on barbell cycling as a whole, all variations, and then stuff that is strength based that's coming from the floor. So in particular, the Oli lifts, because deadlifts, though this competition hasn't programmed heavy deadlifts, and in general, it's just going to require more bumper plates to be able to do that. So you're at a certain point bottlenecked in how many you can actually use. So it's very likely to be a snatch or a clean and jerk. So that's why I'm continuing to work on this. And besides the fact that it's just like an individual priority that's going to continue to be there for me until I decide to stop playing the sport. So putting my snatch warm up. I want to continue to work on at least a degree of like overhead stability, because I do think that's still a limiter for me. So I'm actually going to put in a 5x5 squat, 205 to 225, just because like that's a moderately heavy weight, right? It's definitely not something that I should be like dying from. It should be something where I can make those sets pretty, and they shouldn't be terribly taxing as I go through that. And then I really wanted to put some like, for example, like up here in the template, it has like a MetCon featuring overhead squat or a squat snatch or a clean ladder variation of some kind. Just because like those are exposures of things based on the past programming that I've seen out of them that is very likely to come up. So this is what I've come up with, right? It was starting out Grace for time, but at 185, and then Isabel for time. So 30 snatches, 185, and then at the 5-minute mark, Isabel at 185. And I've actually done Isabel at 185 before. I did that on February 19th of 2021. So a little over 2 years ago, and like almost 2.5 years ago, actually, at this point. And I got 508 on that. So just being able to see like how I'm able to handle that 185-pound bar, I think I'm stronger and able to cycle that weight better now, just more comfortable with 185-pound power snatches. And then, but putting some pre-fatigue on that, and specifically to the musculature of specifically the posterior chain and like low back as well, which could be maybe more of an issue than like the legs. And then actually I want to put in some additional pulling work, but my thumbs did really not like just doing that with the empty bar every 30 seconds times 20, and I didn't use any straps. So I'm going to allow myself to use straps, but it's just getting in and out of straps every 30 seconds is a disaster. So I'm going to make it an EMOM instead and do it 2 reps on the minute. So it's a very similar volume, very similar intensity, but we're going to put 2 reps on the minute versus 1 every 30 seconds, just for practicality's sake. And then these snatch grips RDLs, they're going to stay exactly the same. And I like doing that sometimes. Like I said on Monday, like you don't have to like do things like crazy to switch it. Sometimes it's just like a little tweak that will make a very big difference. On Wednesday AM, I have my next front squat session, just squatting session as a whole. I am going to be moving the tib and calf raise to the beginning, as for the same reason that I mentioned on Monday, because I want to allow myself a little opportunity to warm up, but still be more of a productive warm up, I guess would be, maybe for a lack of a better term, right? Where I'm able to just get some good quality work in that is like the accessory type things I'll be doing afterward. That's not going to be super fatiguing. However, it will be if nothing else, like good activation work and like an opportunity for me to get warm and feel okay before I actually have to go to my front squats. And it doesn't make my session bleed out to 90 minutes or 2 hours, because I have like an hour, maybe 75 minutes I give myself in the mornings to be able to do these sessions, just because that's what works with my schedule. So that's why I do that. And then probably these back squats did not feel great. They just kind of felt kind of awkward, to be honest, because my knees were not feeling 100% at that point, because I had done, some overhead squatting, snatching on Tuesday. I had done obviously a bunch of squatting on Monday, and then as well as all of the bike erging stuff that's to come. It just doesn't really make sense for me to continue to hammer that home. So I just got rid of that. And instead of doing every 90 seconds for 18, that felt pretty good when I did that last week. So we're just gonna straight up make that an EMOM, 2 front squats at 275. So that's that. The PM, I actually really like this session this week. It was 27. It ended up being 27K on the bike erg total throughout this session. There was a lot of time right here on the rest in between sets, but the rest of it I really liked and enjoyed a lot. I just think it was like a starting place, which is fine, but I could definitely handle a lot more here. So I'm going to leave the end caps. You can see what do I call it? I actually didn't put it on here, but sometimes I'll call it like bookends, right? So it's like bike erg zone work at the beginning, bike erg zone work at the end, and it's easy and it's nasal, and it's probably realistically maybe at the beginning, probably zone 2, and probably at the end, probably zone 3, but about the same wattage, same paces throughout. And then this is what I come up with. Instead of doing, so obviously I kind of like want to just give myself an opportunity to learn how to do the burpee box get overs, because that's a movement that we've seen there, to a 48-inch box. I haven't done a ton of those, so I just kind of wanted to get a feel for that. I feel like I do have a handle on what technique is going to be the best for that, and likely they're going to be the foam boxes. So putting a knee down and then kind of like scrambling across, and there's like a particular way that I've figured out it works pretty well to do that. And I've seen Rich Froning do it a bunch of times, to be honest. So I just kind of was like, well, it's probably pretty efficient if he's doing it. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to replace it with something that's going to be a little bit higher work rest ratio. Like not quite as much rest on the bike erg in between, and that's totally fine. So now I'm doing, this will actually end up being like 56 ring muscle ups, which it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but it's like, the density is just so low, right? It's like a 32-minute piece, so it's really not that dense of work at all. So it's not going to be something that I need to be worried about. And it's not combined with a bunch of other pulling work that's going to really fatigue my shoulders a lot. Yeah, burpee, box get over, but I mean, come on, it's like holding a plank almost when you do a burpee. It's not a big deal. So you're resting on the bike erg between sets. And then I did want to continue to work on the touch and go sandbag cleans, because realistically, if you want to be good in this sport now, you have to touch and go them. And one thing that I probably should work on is like, there's been competitions that have done touch and go sandbag cleans where you either have to show control at the top of every single rep, or your hands actually have to touch the bottom versus the bag, or the floor versus the bag touching the floor, which is probably going to be really tough to see for a judging perspective. But these are things that I need to practice different standards, because I don't know how they've done it in the past. And then I'm going to leave that dumbbell preacher curl, but I'm going to prescribe the weight, because I actually did the weight this week, so I know what really heavy feels like. So I'm just going to put the 45 pounds there, because I know that's what's tough. So that's Wednesday. Thursday is my recovery day. I'm not going to touch that. I'm going to leave it go. The one thing I actually am going to add, though, is I'm going to do a 2-mile walk in the morning. My son is loving the backpack, and the dog loves it as well, and is good for me. So I think it's a win-win-win for everybody. And everybody's a little bit more tired than for my wife when she gets home from work, and they're hopefully a little bit more manageable for her. So everybody wins when that happens. So moving on, this is actually my last day of the week, since Saturday's already been programmed out, which is always super nice that I get to do that with a bunch of my friends. But Friday morning, I'm actually doing some additional snatch work in the garage, which basically I can drop it in the garage, but it's not great. I have crash pads, and the concrete gets busted up if I drop it a lot. So I'm going to be doing 3 position snatches. It's just one more way to not have to drop it a ton, but get some good reps in. Felt really good at 165 this week. Pretty easy, frankly. So we're going to bump that up. And actually, I'm going to make this as well. This is actually something that I'm going to quick modify. I'm going to put 3 sets at or 3 sets. I'll say sets 1 to 3 are powers, and then sets 4 through 6 are squats, right? So hip, power, snatch, hang, power, snatch, low, hang, power, snatch, and then for the other ones it will be hip, squat, snatch, hang, squat, snatch, low, hang, squat, snatch. It's a mouthful. So that'll be my initial snatch work. And then I'm going to bump this up to like 225 for these floating snatch high pulls. But I'm going to make this... I actually ended up doing 6x6 last week at 205, and that felt pretty good. So we're going to have 6x4 at 225. And again, one of the things I got to balance here is if I put volume somewhere, I got to take it back somewhere else just so that it doesn't get too out of hand to make it like really exhausting. And then not only really exhausting, but like from the time perspective as well. And then I'm going to put it in one set of switch lunge jumps. I'm actually going to put those on a single set as well on Wednesday after my front squats, just to get like a little bit of a leg pump and hit the glute med a little bit, like get a lunge pattern in, because I'm not doing a ton of that throughout the week. And then I'm going to make sure, because that is super taxing and it's going to drive a ton of blood into the legs, I'm going to give myself a flush work. Just like make that mandatory, because if I write it, I'm more likely to do it. Okay. And we'll probably make these 4x15 with the 80, because I did 4x12 this week and that felt fine. Okay, and then for the PM, we have, again, sort of a warm-up that is erg-based, which is, just as it sounds, an opportunity to get warm and to get some additional cardiac building qualities in there. Basically like easier zone work combined with handstand walking. And I want to increase the lengths of these, get comfortable doing bigger unbroken sets. And I don't want to make it like crazy where I'm doing that in between each of those, like the same format as last week. So I'm going to go 25 calories in the rower, 25 calories in the biker, because that's my friend right now. And also that's a complementary movement pattern where it gives my upper body a break. And then I should feel pretty fresh going into an 80-foot unbroken handstand walk, which is about the furthest I can go in the gym without running into a wall. And then B, these are some really kind of painful intervals that this is actually a format that I stole from one of their events, as most of the stuff is. It's based off that kind of thing. We're going to do a very similar type of a thing. However, I want to get some, here I put the strict handstand push-ups after that. And frankly, if I do that many thrusters and walking lunges and continue to progress this afterwards, it's not going to go super great afterwards. So I'm going to put it before. So I'm going to put strict handstand push-ups, so a 9-inch deficit, which is, I'll probably just use 3 45-pound bumpers on each side. It'll probably be more like 10 when I do that. Accumulating 30 reps, so I can do it however I want based on how I feel on that particular day. And then I'm going to add a round. I'm going to make each of these for time, with the score being the total time. And that way, it's really just to kind of make sure that I'm staying level in terms of like my output across those, versus if I say like max effort from the very beginning, it'll likely tail off quite a bit. However, that might be language that I change moving on to next cycle, where it needs to be truly max effort from the very beginning. If there is like a last man standing type event, which there was in the past, where you could get eliminated if you don't just completely hammer it off the bat. I will make sure that I am able to do that and having the physiology to express that, as well as the mindset of going 100% right from the bell. So, and another reason was that I wanted to put in these deficit handstand push-ups, and that's a lot of deficit handstand push-ups. Even though the deficit isn't crazy, it's plenty. So that plus an overhead walking lunge is plenty of overhead work. So we'll kind of leave it at that for the overhead stuff in this session. And then you'll see that really my goals here were like, I wanted to do some upper body pushing and pulling type accessory work with the strict deficit, even though I ended up doing kipping here today. But I did do some strict deficit before. So definitely got both of those. And then some like dips or legless rope climbs. So this is what I'm going to be doing, 5 sets, just quality focused, right? So I can rest as much as I need to in between, just trying to basically stay moving while I'm actually in the sets. So 3 legless rope climbs, hopefully they're like relatively like touch and go, so to speak. into 15 parallel dips, which just like a 15 is a pretty big chunk, especially after the amount of pressing that I've already done, plus all the handstand walking and the other stuff. So it's been a lot of tricep today, and that's really that's sort of the goal of like a session like this, is to start to build some of those higher qualities in the muscles before we pull back in the following cycle and just really intensify everything and pull back volume. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on was, because we haven't really done this yet, and this session's starting to get long, so I need to be kind of aware of that. But I wanted to put in some additional gripping work. So we're just going to do something very simple. It's basically just a grip burner, 4 time 30 farmers carries, and that's lengths of 25 feet, and that's 70 pound kettlebells per hand directly into 30 toes to bar. I would hope to do both of those unbroken, but who knows based on how it actually feels. So, and then flush work, basically 5 rounds. So I'm just going to leave that untouched from the previous week. 5 rounds at recovery pace, 10 calories on the ski erg, 10 calories on the bike erg. And then I already kind of, like, based on the template, have a pretty good idea that this isn't super interfering with the next day. However, I always try to go in and look. There is some like handstand work stuff on this day. There is some like bar pullover work, but really like all that stuff is pretty easy, frankly. Like, it's not going to be super draining because it's in a really novel format. So I'm not gonna be able to push that hard. So I can't dig that much compared to like this every 3 minutes times 6 rounds. I could really get gnarly with that. So it's basically like strength work where it's more clean based. And then obviously like the name game workout itself is more skill based, and then some erg based power on a rower. And that's why, among other things, I didn't do any erg based power. That was for the rower over on this side, just because I knew this was coming on this day. So you just got to make sure everything works, and that you feel okay. So that's my week. If you guys are enjoying this sort of thing and you want to see more of it, be sure to let me know in the comments. If you got questions, I'll try to answer them. So just comment below, and we'll see you soon.